Hello, welcome back to my fave fanfics. Here, I post, well, my favorite fanfictions, if that wasn't obvious. I do hope you'll enjoy them as much as I do. Please like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome to the first part of What If Minato Yeeted Himself and His Son into the World of Demon Slayer. Credit goes to SapavemLasae. Chapter 1. A Brilliant Echo. He's getting too old for any of this. Minato stares at the sky, taking it all in. The stars are bright overhead. No lights dot the landscape, and so the view is simply spectacular. Minato can't bring himself to enjoy it. He is looking at the sky and he isn't seeing the stars. He sees blood running in rivers below his feet. He sees the faces of those he was tasked to protect, slackened with hollow eyes that scream at him. He sees his village as it crumbles before him, and he can't help but hate himself. He sees the eyes of Kushina as she gazes at him with such adoration, such love, so much that he doesn't deserve it. Minato looks at the stars and sees nothing but his past as it lays behind him. He has spent too many nights like this, gazing at the sky as he thinks of the months that have passed. Naruto sleeps not far away in a small abandoned house that Minato stowed away in. He sleeps, not knowing the sins that his father bears on his shoulder. Konoha is dead, Kushina is gone. Those that Minato swore to stand beside and keep safe were crushed beneath the hands of his student, and all that was left was Minato. He turns his gaze to the branches of the trees that blanket his surroundings. His chakra flickers as he takes in his surroundings. Everything feels too alive considering the destruction that overtook Konoha. Then again, Minato isn't in Konoha. He's not even in the elemental nations. He pushes his hands into the dirt. Minato rises and switches his gaze to his lap. Two of his signature kunai rest on the fabric of his torn and muddied pants. It has been months. Months of Minato sitting around as he waits for an answer to his circumstances. He's grown tired of waiting. He was never the best at standing around, for all that his skills aligned with tactics and mind games. He would rather shoot for the fastest route. But he can't do that here. Not when he has little to no information to base any semblance of a plan on. This world is so much different than the one he was born in. There are no shinobi or none that utilize chakra the same way that he does. There is no crazed maniac threatening the world for control of a higher power. There are no Jinchuriki besides his son and himself. There are just people. Normal civilians with the occasional fighter. The world that Minato is in is so foreign that it leaves a bad taste in his mouth. He knows that he should be grateful when the world he left behind was nothing more than a husk of what it could have been. Minato only had Naruto left. After all, it wasn't much of a change between the worlds. He feels shuffling under a layer of calm chakra. There's something underneath the chakra, something so hazy and filled with anger that Minato shies away. He doesn't want to address the current of chakra that melds with his sons so well. Minato rises to his feet as Naruto stirs in their home. He lets out a pulse of his chakra when he feels the panic under the surface. Naruto calms and waits for him, waiting for Minato to return. If it weren't for Naruto, Minato wouldn't have survived. He wouldn't have wanted to survive. Kushina was dead. Konoha was gone. Naruto was all he had left. Chapter 2. Ripples over the surface. Minato stirs as he feels a head of blonde hair nearly collide with his chin. The practiced grace from his shinobi training aids Minato in avoiding Naruto's head. He directs his son to the side as he stirs. Naruto is very much like the sun. He rises with it and has so much energy to him that Minato almost wonders if the kid had some sugar stashed away that Minato doesn't know about. Kushina had loved that Naruto took after her in the energy department. She had loved just how much their son was like her. Minato manages a smile as he hears the excited, "Good morning." His son gives him because the only other option for him is to cry. He pulls himself up and ruffles his son's hair as Naruto slips from his side. The kid is only 5 years old, and already he shows the strength and agility of any other shinobi. "To-san, today is market day." He cries in excitement as he bounds over to the heap of clothes settled in the corner of the room. Minato nods and hums in agreement with his son. He offers the boy a smile as he slips his feet over the side of the bed. "Yeah, it is. How about you get ready and meet me outside?" He prompts the young boy. Naruto is practically vibrating with excitement as he bounds across the room. He grabs some clothes and ducks out the door of the room, leaving his father behind as his footsteps echo in the old house. Sunlight streams through a window, a light breeze ghosting Minato's skin as he watches him go. Minato takes a deep breath and rises to his feet. His mind is focused on the day ahead of them. It is growing colder, the summer months slipping through their fingers. He looks outside the window, taking in the falling leaves from the trees. They will need to find another place to stay or outfit this place better for the coming months. As a trained shinobi, Minato can handle the cold. He doesn't want his son to have to bear the frigid weather that is coming. He glances back to where the kid ran to and pulses his chakra. He receives a pulse in turn that makes his lips twitch. The place they are in now will need a lot of repairs, and Minato is not that handy. He has political strengths when dealing with people and making allies, not skills in fixing up houses. He's done a few projects of the sort, but most of them had been in his genin days and not in the past 10 years of his life. Minato pads to the door and slides it open. He walks down the halls as he catalogs the state of the home. It's a lot better than when they arrived. The rotted wood is mostly taken care of and only a few leaks in the ceiling remain. The floors are carefully repaired so he and Naruto don't have to worry about walking through them without shoes. There is dust just about everywhere, but it's tolerable. Minato enters the living room and kitchen area. Naruto is already rustling through their supplies as he tries to find some food to eat before they head out. He has put on a new pair of clothes, or at least ones not as dirty as his other set. They don't have much left. Minato steps over and catches an old kettle that nearly falls on Naruto when the kid gets too rambunctious and starts climbing up cabinets. He catches his son after when the boy lets out a startled cry and tumbles back against him. "Careful, Naruto," Minato tells the boy with the practiced ease of a parent who's been dealing with an energetic child for years. Naruto squeals as Minato spins them around and adds a touch of speed with the tiniest flicker of chakra. He deposits his son at the salvage table near the kitchen and then returns to grab them food. They are incredibly low on food. It'll be good for them to go into town. Minato sets some rice from the night before and uses a Kaiden jutsu to start a fire in the hearth. He places some of the miso he stored away in the pot and adds water hauled in from a nearby river. Naruto peers at him from where he sits on the floor. He leans over the table and watches his father intently, eyes flicking to the flames with increased interest. Minato catches the gaze and smiles at him even though he feels his chest clench. He's worried about Naruto's growing interest in using his chakra. The boy will need to start chakra control exercises soon anyway, even if Minato wants to put it off as long as possible. The soup heats up enough to be considered warm and Minato adds it to a bowl before setting it and some rice next to his son. He sits beside him with his own set of food and they dig in after giving thanks. He cuts his chakra and the fire goes out without a word. Naruto is still looking at it with interest even as he shovels the food into his mouth. Minato reaches out to rub his back as he chuckles at the boy. "Slow down, it's not going anywhere, Naruto," Minato urges the boy. Naruto nods, but he only slows down a little bit more. Minato takes it as a win and finishes eating his own food as he thinks over what they need to do. He needs food and maybe some warmer clothes for the two of them. He can look for some ideas on housing while they are out. He finishes eating and rises so he can check their supplies. He pulls out his money pouch. He had overlooked how nice it was that the currencies they had were so similar when he first arrived, but now, he can't help but be grateful. People mostly don't care as long as it holds value in silver and gold, which Minato has in spades. Minato passes a hand over the storage scroll and catalogs just how many weapons they have. He has a good amount of his custom kunai since he doesn't need them as much here, along with his sword, Kushina's weapons, and a few more options should he run into trouble. The most dangerous thing in this world seems to be bandits though. Are we going to San? Naruto asks from behind him. Minato turns and when Naruto lifts his arms he picks him up. This earns him a bright grin that he returns as he slips the scroll inside his robes. Not his cloak, because for all the comfortable weight it is on his shoulders, Minato doesn't want to stand out. It's not even his shinobi garb which is tucked away in some of his scrolls. Instead, it is a serviceable top and pants that don't restrict his movement nearly as much as some of his other options. Naruto wears the less westernized clothing that Kushina had bought him years ago. A yukata, but one that has seen its fair share of mud and grime. Minato's scrubbed a good amount of it out, but he is hardly a master at cleaning or caring for clothes. Whenever Minato had destroyed one of his outfits in the past, he had just chosen to buy a new outfit. He'd never had a problem with his system until now. Yeah, let's get going Naruto, Minato murmurs as he pulls himself from his thoughts. He sets off with Naruto taking residence around his shoulders. The boy enjoys being high up and takes great pleasure in pointing out the familiar scenery to Minato. Minato makes it a point to respond to him no matter how silly he is being. He enjoys hearing Naruto ramble, especially when the boy is so incredibly happy. The trek to the village is made much shorter by Minato's quick strides and the occasional jump through the woods. Naruto enjoys this most of all as he laughs gleefully. Minato holds on to him to ensure he doesn't fall, but soon they arrive at the village and he has to murmur to Naruto to quell his laughter to a reasonable volume. It's rather early in the morning for being as loud as Naruto generally is. Naruto knows well enough to take on a polite volume in the town and quiets as he observes the sights with his bright blue eyes. Minato smiles and looks away from his son to wave at some of the villagers. They have been near the village long enough that its patrons recognize and greet them. Minato's easygoing grin and personality were quick to win them over the first time they arrived. Naruto greeted those they passed just as eagerly, though he was mindful not to shout. "Morning Asahi-san." "Morning Yuri-san." Minato calls to the two women currently setting out baskets. The older ladies both greet him in turn. "Good morning Minato-kun, are you headed to the market?" They ask, smiling and returning Naruto's wave when he turns his attention to them. "Morning. We are gonna get some more food and clothes." Naruto calls from up high, earning soft smiles. Minato pats his son's leg and nods. Naruto needs some more clothes for the winter. "I'm not used to the weather here just yet and spaced it," he tells them. Asahi, a weathered and graying woman with a sharp smile and wicked laugh, only chuckles. "Of course. It'll be a tough one this year, so make sure you get enough to stay warm," she informs him. Yuri shakes her head at him. The two were some of the first to welcome him into their small community. They hardly batted an eye at his odd coloring and insisted on paying for his and Naruto's first meal when they stumbled into town looking like they had just been robbed. Minato went with the assumption, knowing it was far more likely to be believed than his actual tale. Dimension hopping wasn't exactly something everyone was privy to. Let the villagers believe that the foreigner and his son were in need of help. Let those look and only see two blondes, one a kind father and the other an excited child. Minato nods at them and turns to head to the market. He gives them a goodbye over his shoulder and heads to his preferred stop for goods. He reaches the market and pauses. Standing at a stall next to the shopkeeper Taichi is an odd man. His hair is as bright as Minato's and just as crazily styled. The main difference is that alongside the blonde spikes are hues of red. Minato calmly assesses the man, files his notable appearance away for later, and heads inside the shop. A little bit of chakra in his ears means that Minato doesn't need to turn to overhear the conversation. I'm sorry, but I don't think we'll have any more of that in stock for a while. Our caravans have been getting attacked and few of them will make the trek anymore. I can send word to your estate the next time a shipment comes in. Taichi tells the man, sounding 2 parts aggrieved and 1 part annoyed. Odd. Minato had heard about several attacks taking place at night. It was the main reason he kept Naruto inside after dark. Better that than having to deal with an overzealous bandit taking advantage. Minato had faith in his skills, but he did not want to put Naruto in any sort of position where Minato had to use them. He tunes into the conversation again as he is grabbing some food and placing it in a bag. Attacks? What sort of attacks? The odd man asks. His voice is rough and edged with something else. A quick and well-hidden sniff gives Minato enough of an idea. His nose wrinkles as he gets a heavy whiff of something metallic from the man. Unease trickles through Minato at the prospect. Wild animals. People have been dragged away and all that is left is blood. The shipments are mostly intact, but no one really wants to risk it with a wild animal out there, Taichi says with a sigh. Minato pauses at that information. A wild animal? Odd that it didn't at least disturb the shipments. More so that it waited till night to strike. Maybe it was nocturnal? He didn't dwell on it too much. It didn't concern him. Minato finished his shopping and at Naruto's urging, set the boy down so he could grab a few items he wanted. For the most part, Naruto grabbed fruits because those were the only sweets that Minato would let him have. Alright, well I'll just take some of my normal purchases, the man finally says. Taichi gives an affirmative and goes to grab a few items for the man. Minato finally steps up to the counter as they are exchanging currency. Naruto follows him with a bundle of plums in his arms, and oddly enough, a sweet potato. He grins up at Minato and earns a happy smile. Oh, Minato, good to see you, Taichi calls past his current customer as he takes the money. He leans over to greet Naruto as well, grinning at the boy. You too, Naruto, keeping out of trouble? He asks, though Naruto only nods his head. Minato feels a piercing gaze on him and barely stops his reflexive twitch as he sets his items on the counter for Taichi to add up. He hides his tension behind a practiced smile as he helps Naruto put the plums and his sweet potato on the counter. The other man is looking at him, observing him. His gaze is anything but the gaze of a civilian stranger. No, this gaze is one that is assessing a threat. Minato glances over, pretends to catch the man's gaze, and offers him a disarming smile. Hello, I don't think I have met you before. I'm Minato. Minato offers, using his hands being full of goods as an excuse to not offer a formal greeting. The man takes a moment to look him over, eyes shifting to Naruto. Then when he looks up he nods at Minato. Rengoku Shinjiro. You from around here? He asks gruffly. Minato hums and sets money down for Taichi. Naruto presses against his side as he shifts from looking at his father to Shinjiro. Not really. I've been living outside the village for a few months with my son. We aren't from the area though, Minato offers. There's a pause as Shinjiro takes them in again. His eyes narrow briefly, but he seems to let something slide as he grabs his purchases. To-san, we got the fabric. A call comes from behind Minato, and he twists on instinct to the source. It's a boy with bright blonde hair with red tips. He is about Naruto's age, maybe a year or two older. He looks to his father as he holds a bag filled with what Minato recognizes as heaps of fabric. The prints are bright, vibrant, and filled with oddly whimsical things. Children's patterns. Kyojiro, thank you, Shinjiro says as he draws his son to his side. Naruto laughs against Minato's side and waves at the other boy happily. Something sparks in the other boy's eyes when he sees Naruto's vibrant hair. Minato supposes that the kids would feel a kinship with one another over their shared coloring. After all, the area seems much more alive with natural tones than the bright blonde they sport. Kushina's red would have also been a sore thumb in the area. "Ah, Naruto, want to introduce yourself?" Minato asks his son. He knows the boy isn't shy, has had to warn him about strangers more than once in fact. Naruto jumps at the chance to introduce himself with a bright grin. "I'm Naruto," he says, and his smile is so bright that something twinges in Minato's chest. He has Kushina's smile. Kyojuro blinks and then matches Naruto's smile with a grin of his own. He's still tucked against his father's side, but he is no less bright when he responds, "Kyojuro, I like your hair." Quote. Naruto grins even brighter. He always gets excited when someone compliments his hair. The first time someone told him he looked like his dad, Naruto hadn't stopped smiling. It was good to see him in such great spirits. Minato observed the two interact, raising his head just in time to meet the assessing gaze of Shinjiro. The man inclines his head again and seems to debate something. Finally, he settles on looking down at his son. "Are you hungry?" he asks the boy and receives an excited nod in return. Minato hears a grumble behind him and glances back to see Naruto holding his stomach. He looks up at Minato hopefully at the mention of food. Right, Jinchuriki metabolism. Minato is still having a hard time keeping up with it in this world. He can normally get away with larger portions at home since that outside tend to give him wary glances when Naruto consumes more than a 5-year-old should. After this morning's measly portions, Minato should have expected the boy to get hungry faster. Perhaps they could stop somewhere before moving on to shop for clothes. "Would you like to join us for lunch?" Shinjiro asks. Minato shifts his gaze to the man, his hopeful son, and then back to Naruto. He automatically wants to politely decline, but Naruto is hungry and they would go for food anyway. Minato converses with other townsfolk often enough that it isn't a problem if he gets to know one more. Naruto could also use someone near his age. If it wouldn't be a problem, I would not mind. "I'm sure Naruto wants some food," Minato says and looks down at his son. Naruto gazes up at him with bright blue eyes that should be illegal, all too hopeful at the prospect of delicious food. "All right, there's a ramen stand nearby. Please, join us." Shinjiro offers and gestures with his hand for Minato to follow. It's been a long time since Minato gave himself a moment to just sit with someone. He's been so focused on Naruto, so focused on ensuring their safety ever since they were dropped into this world. Maybe things will go better, maybe now he can start to settle in. In a world without chakra, there's no real need for a shinobi after all. Chapter 3. Thoughts of More. Naruto is 3 parts interested in the conversation his father is having with the brightly colored man, 3 parts interested in the other boy his age who is just as loud as he is, and 4 parts interested in the ramen sitting in front of him. He gulps down another bowl even as his father politely chides him to take it easy and that they have time for him to enjoy the food. Naruto knows that they have time, but he enjoys the food so much he just wants to keep eating until there is nothing left. Next to him, Kyojuro shares his sentiments as he downs his 3rd bowl. The two entered into an unintended competition after they realized the other ate just as much as their newfound friend did. Naruto's on his 5th bowl, but most of that is due to the fact that Kyojuro talks a lot when he eats. In between mouthfuls of ramen, Kyojuro chants, "Delicious," in such a way that Naruto can't help but smile. It reminds him of someone with fiery red hair who used to eat ramen with Naruto and Minato. He gains a sad smile. It's been months since he last saw that person. He struggles to remember their face sometimes. Even so, he really likes his new friend. He hasn't had a friend in a while because his 2-san keeps them occupied at the house and tends to stay away from the village. It was fun to play with him, but Naruto also wanted a friend his age. "How old are you, Naruto?" Kyojuro asks as he moves on to his 5th bowl. He's smiling ear to ear because Naruto's grins are contagious, and both are happy kids. Naruto had told the boy to just call him by his name after a bout of formalities, enjoying the familiarity it offered. Almost 6. Naruto manages through a bite of ramen. Kyojuro blinks and his bushy brows climb up as he looks Naruto over again. Naruto knows that he's a little big for a 5-year-old, even one about to turn 6. His 2-san told him it was something to do with his genes, which he really didn't understand. It was also why he ate so much. He grew a lot faster than most other kids did. "How old are you?" Naruto asks the boy. He's curious now since he doesn't really know how ages work. His 2-san is old, but he doesn't say how much. He mostly tells Naruto not to worry about it or says that he's an adult. Kyojuro pauses while he is eating so he can finish his bite before answering. "I will be turning 9 on May 10th. He says. Naruto pauses and his brow furrows as he tries to think. It was just beginning to be fall, and though he wasn't sure of the date, he recalled his dad saying his birthday was around 2 months away. That meant, oh, so in 7 months? And that's so cool, my birthday is October 10th. Naruto says, knowing that at least. He remembered the date easily enough. It was the day he first had ramen. It stuck in his memory for more than just that, but he couldn't recall why. Minato watched his son interact with Kyojuro and couldn't hide his smile. It was good for Naruto to be around others his age. Minato had the academy growing up, but Naruto didn't. His son was lucky enough to interact with others Minato's age, let alone his own. He's a happy kid, Shinjiro spoke, drawing Minato's attention to the small sitting next to him. The two of them were eating their bowls of ramen at a much more sedated pace than their sons. Even so, Minato had 2 bowls and was working on his third while Shinjiro was finishing his second. Yes, he is. He doesn't get a lot of social interaction with other kids, so this is good for him. Thank you, Minato tells the other man. Naruto is telling Kyojuro how old he is, eyes focused in concentration. Shinjiro nods, though he doesn't seem to think that it was anything big. He had seen a man who held himself the way a soldier did, seen a man with a son, and thought it would be nice for Kyojuro to have friends his age. It's all right. My wife Ruka wanted Kyojuro to make some more friends his age and I figured this would be the perfect opportunity, Shinjiro says. His eyes shift to the boys again, softening. Minato takes note of the odd hues. Red rimmed with gold, the iris a brilliant shade that reminded Minato of Kushina's hair. Truly an interesting combination and not something that he expected to see in this simple world. Minato rubs the back of his head sheepishly. It's a habit that he couldn't break even when Kushina was around to smack him for it. Same here. Naruto only has me, so it's nice to see him interact with others, he says and then looks back to his bowl. A wistful smile crosses his face. Kushina would have wanted it too, he says and tries not to let the pang in his heart show on his face. Even speaking her name hurts now, months after the fact. A hand settles on his shoulder, Minato glancing over to the man who may end up being a new friend. Shinjiro is looking him over and Minato can't help but feel like he wasn't as successful as he wanted to be in hiding his grief. Maybe you could come by our estate sometime? My wife would love to meet you, and I'm sure your son could use the company, Shinjiro says, gesturing to both their sons. The Rengoku child is trying to balance a pair of clean chopsticks on his nose, mimicking Naruto who is doing the same. Minato doesn't have the heart to tell the other kid that Naruto is using chakra to stick the chopsticks to his face, not his impressive balancing skills. The idea stirs something in him. Minato started out running in this world. He had no idea where he was, how far he was from Konoha, and he didn't want to stop for a second if it meant Naruto would be in danger. He had been so used to fighting for so long that running had been unwelcome at the time, but he saw it as their only option. When he stood and fought, when he chose not to run, that was when Kushina died. He weighs the pros and cons, but really, he's already decided. Quick friends, hell, friends, in general, aren't something he's had for over 6 months. He's been running and when he finally realized that this world didn't have Akatsuki, didn't have beings out for his blood, he'd been completely focused on Naruto. I think, Minato began as his smile reached his eyes. That would be a lovely idea. Shinjiro offered a tired smile in return. "2-san, look, look." Naruto called and Minato turned to see Naruto balancing a bowl of ramen on his head. It was only half full, but the weight of it was enough to make Naruto pause as he focused. His eyes were narrowed on the rim sitting on his forehead, his head angled back. "Naruto, you shouldn't play with your food," Minato started, but Naruto's chakra pulsed and slipped. Years of honed instincts had Minato moving even before Naruto's shout registered in the other surprised patrons. A shuffle of feet, quick and agile, and the twisting of limbs as Minato caught his son before he fell from his stool, a bowl of ramen in his other hand. He ignored the look of surprised awe in Kyojiru's eyes as he set the bowl down on the counter first, his son on his stool next. When Minato gave him a tired look, Naruto's cheeks puffed in a pout. He leaned down, flicking the boy lightly on the forehead. "Naruto, be more careful next time," he told him in a light but firm tone. He didn't want Naruto to get upset, but he had been scared. Naruto was all he had left. He couldn't let anything happen to him. Minato felt eyes on them once Naruto nodded. His world shifted from just Naruto to everything else around him. He felt the eyes of the cook, some of the others eating at the stand, and most importantly, his newest acquaintance. Shinjiro's burning gaze did not leave Minato even as he settled back in his seat. The question left a different air to their conversation. Minato glanced over and met the gaze with his own. Years of being a shinobi, of being Hokage aided him in keeping his cool. "Is there something on my face, Shinjiro-san?" Minato asked as he gave a disarming smile. Practiced, non-threatening. Those were things Minato was good at. "2-san, are we going to get close?" A small voice called out, curbing the edge in Minato's chakra as Shinjiro's stare failed to waver. Minato turned away, missing the furrowing of his fellow blonde's brow. Naruto was looking at him with bright eyes tinged with mischief. Even for a 5-year-old, Naruto was incredibly perceptive. He could tell that the atmosphere had just grown awkward and attempted to break it. Perhaps there was more of Minato in him than just his coloring. Minato leaned to his son and ruffled his hair gently. He glanced over to see that Naruto had finished the last of his bowls and was likely full for now. That worked in his favor. "Right, we should do that, huh Naruto? How about you get ready to go and I'll pay," Minato offered the boy. Naruto nodded and carefully began to shimmy his way down the stool. Minato kept an eye on him until he touched the solid ground before he turned to Shinjiro. "Sorry, but we do have to get some shopping done. Naruto needs new clothes and it's getting late. I don't want to take too long getting home with rumors of some animal running around." "Thank you for this though, I do think Naruto enjoyed it," Minato offers Shinjiro. Shinjiro nods, though his expression hardly softens as he glances to where his son sits. There's something exchange, but Minato doesn't want to move his gaze from the other adult. "Well, if it wouldn't be too much trouble, perhaps we could accompany you. Kyojiro could use some new clothes as well and I wouldn't mind company. I'm sure the boys would enjoy some time together too." Minato withheld a grimace and fought back the tension growing again. His eyes shifted to Naruto and Naruto was looking at him with bright blue eyes, wide and wavering. He glanced to Kyojiro and looked so excited, so expectant. Minato released the tension and nodded. "I think Naruto likes that idea. I could use a little bit of help finding a good place to shop anyway," Minato relented. Shinjiro nodded, rising and reaching into his pocket to likely pay for the bill. He froze when he noticed money already on the counter, covering both bills. His eyes flickered to Minato, but he was already walking out with Naruto in tow. Naruto held onto his hand as he chattered to Kyojiro about something. Both boys were lively and excited to be able to spend more time with someone their age. It warmed Shinjiro's heart enough that he let the odd occurrence go as he stepped in time with Minato. "There's a nice shop near the end of the market that sells comfortable and good quality clothes. My wife and I tend to shop there, Shinjiro offers. Minato nods and smiles at him gratefully. He keeps Naruto's hand in his, the boy stuck between two adults. Kyojuro walks next to Naruto as they converse. That is much appreciated. I'm not the best when it comes to picking out things for Naruto. He also isn't allowed to choose because he is rather fond of bright colors. Minato tells the man, deciding that small talk wouldn't be a bad idea. Small talk about Naruto he can manage. Anything regarding his skills and reflexes and he will have to avoid the subject. Shinjiro raises a brow and directs his gaze to Naruto as the boy peers up at them. His eyes are wide and bright as he grins. I like orange though too-san. He says with all the cheer he can muster. Minato lets out a partially aggrieved sigh. The boy had his mother's taste in colors too. Yes, but a bright orange yukata is not going to stay that way for long. It also isn't very practical, Naruto, Minato says and ruffles his son's hair as he finally lets go of his hand. The boy pouts at him but doesn't argue, instead turning to his new friend to ask him what his favorite color is. Orange? That's hard to find in these parts, Shinjiro says, looking back to Minato. A burst of paranoia rushed through Minato as he tries to stifle it. There's an edge to the man's question. He's searching for something to identify them. Minato supposes two can play that game. Ah, well, where we come from it's not as rare, though definitely a commodity, Minato says, even as he searches for another distraction. An easy one comes by when Naruto spots a yukata that a vendor has on display. Minato nearly chokes when he sees it, and Naruto rushes over. He turns to Minato with bright blue eyes and Minato swallows past the growing lump in his throat. It's a blue yukata, dark blue at that, rimmed with red swirling patterns. It looks so much like something that Kushina would have worn that it tugs at his heartstrings. "To-san, it has the Uzumaki swirl," Naruto says. He's all bright and full of cheer, but Minato is a rolling mess of grief and anguish inside. Swallowing around the lump again and praying his eyes don't start to shimmer with tears, Minato nods. "Why yeah, it is," he says. Another pulse, a feeling of eyes on him. Minato needs to get it together. He hasn't allowed himself to dwell on things like this for a long time, but still, he should be able to handle it. He shifts his eyes over the red swirls on the yukata, over the soft but suitable fabric as something in him twitches. Kushina had sewn a good amount of the Uzumaki swirl into his clothes after they formally announced their marriage. She had grinned and told him it was because he was just as much an Uzumaki as she was a Namikaze at this point. "To-san, it'd look good on you." Naruto's words draw him from his melancholy. Minato looks at the fabric and sees Kushina, who sees what could have been. He takes a deep breath, settles himself, and nods to the boy. "I'm sure it would, Naruto," he begins but is cut off when Naruto turns and asks the owner of the stand how much it is. Well, Minato supposes he can't get out of this. He takes another settling breath and steps up behind Naruto as the little boy tries to bargain with the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper, for his part, looks amused as he tells him the price. Naruto looks to Minato conspiratorially. He tugs on Minato's robe, bringing his dad down to his level. "To-san, can I buy it?" he asks in excitement. Minato isn't sure his heart can take it, but he nods at the boy. How odd that Kushina wouldn't be the only person shoving him into Uzumaki colors and putting their mark on him. How odd that their son would do the same. Minato gives him the money he needs and Naruto slides it on the counter, his arm having to stretch. The shopkeeper chuckles and goes to retrieve the kimono, putting it in a box and then a sack to hand to Naruto. Naruto takes it with a happy thank you and turns back to Minato. Minato smiles at him. His heart hurts but the smile on his son's face eases the pain he feels. He leans to ruffle his hair fondly and turns back to their audience. Shinjiro is watching him again, but this time his gaze is soft. Kyojuro is looking at Naruto with bright and wide eyes. He glances at Minato and then back to Naruto before rushing to his friend. They whisper the way kids do as Kyojuro tries to get a better look at the gift. Shaking his head, Minato gestures for them to continue walking. Shinjiro follows without protest. They arrive at the clothing shop without any more stops. The kids are marveling and sneaking glances at the gift Naruto refuses to let go of, while Minato and Shinjiro continue in comfortable silence. The clothing shop is small but homey. There are racks displaying goods outside as well as inside the stand. A seamstress sits at a table as she patches up a kimono for a waiting mother and her 2 boys. Minato takes a look around, glancing over the wares as he debates just how much to get Naruto. They have a fair amount of money left, but he doesn't want to use it up too quickly. His eyes shift to Naruto as he shoulders his bag of goods. Making up his mind, Minato goes to the children's section of the stall and begins to pick out clothing suitable for cold weather. He is also mindful to grab articles of clothing that allow freedom of movement. Naruto is incredibly spirited and needs to run and play to burn off the energy being an Uzumaki Jinchuriki gives him. Shinjiro steps beside him, grabbing a few articles of other clothing for his son. He pauses when he notices that Minato has only grabbed things for Naruto and nothing for himself. "Are you going to wear those all winter as well?" Shinjiro asks, eyes shifting over the light clothes that can't offer too much in the warmth department. Minato hums in response as he grabs a few more articles of clothing for his son. "I'm accustomed to colder weather. Naruto needs them more than I do. I have a few more sets at home anyway," he says and sets his purchases on the counter. He waits for the seamstress to finish with the mother of 2 before he asks how much they will be. The mother looks at him and flushes darkly. Her eyes ghost over his features and he offers a soft smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. She turns away even as she giggles to herself, guiding her kids out of the shop. Shinjiro watches the exchange as he steps behind Minato. They can hear the boys just outside the shop, Naruto recalling a fearsome tale that Minato told him. Kyojuro is aptly paying attention to the story of a fearsome princess from a foreign land who could call storms down on her enemies. A twinge settles and Minato's smile turns sad again. Kushina had told Minato that tale when they were dating. It was an Uzumaki folktale that was based on one of Kushina's ancestors. He had loved the tale so much that he couldn't wait to tell it to Naruto. It was one of the few he had even acquired a book on so Naruto could read it. Minato pays for the clothes and exits the stall, ignoring the pointed look Shinjiro gives him when he passes a section of clothes that would fit him. He goes straight to Naruto. His son is standing on a rock, holding the bag around his shoulders like a cape as he and Kyojuro act like they're using swords to do battle. Minato's eyes slide from the mock form Naruto has to the other child, and he has to pause. Kyojiro's stance looks too solid, too realistic to be anything but trained. He's not even 8 but Minato knows honed skills when he sees them. He's spent years on the battlefield reading opponents in a blink of an eye. A child play fighting is little trouble for him to discern. Kyojuro has combat training. It's nothing like a shinobi child's style, nothing like the academy taijutsu that Naruto only knows from watching other kids do it. No, this is akin to a kenjutsu style. Naruto, having fun? Minato offers as he shifts to stand beside his son. Naruto drops his arms and turns, springing up on Minato like a monkey. Minato catches him with ease, unwinds the bag from his son's shoulders, and hikes him up so he can situate himself. Naruto settles with both legs wound around Minato's neck, squealing with glee and laughter. He loves being up high and being wrestled with. Minato's quick movements always bring a smile to his eyes whenever they interact. Of course, Naruto also knows that Minato's skills aren't just for show. He's seen his dad go all out to protect him before. "We should get going soon, Naruto. We have to get home before it gets dark," Minato tells his son. It's been several hours since they first arrived in town. Half an hour on foot to get to the village, and even that was going as fast as Minato dared at the risk of being seen. Another hour before they sat down to eat with the Rengokus, they spent 2 or 3 hours just sitting and talking while waiting for the boys to finish their meals. Minato calculates that it is nearing mid-afternoon. They could still make it back before nightfall, though Minato has one last stop to make. You have a few more hours before it gets dark, so I wouldn't worry too much, Shinjiro says from behind. Minato looks at him over his shoulder as he nods. I know, but I still need to grab a few more things I am running low on, Minato says as he recalls this morning. His weapons stock is fine, but he is running low on brushes and ink. He would like to have a good supply available just in case. He used a good amount of his supply just to equip their house with the seals it needed to be protected. Well, if you don't mind, I can help you find them. Our home is 10 minutes away, so we don't have to worry too much, Shinjiro offers. Minato wants to decline, wants to go off on his own, but something stops him. A whispered voice in his head that sounds so much like Kushina, one that tells him he needs to stop running. Shinjiro has already helped him out today, as much as he didn't expect it. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I need to find some ink and paper. Any idea where I could get both in a large quantity? He asks. Shinjiro raises a brow, but nods. We can go to where I get my stock. If it's not too intrusive of me, may I ask why? He says as he takes the lead. Kyojiro is quick to move next to him. He's pretty much silent now because Naruto is up high and enjoying seeing everything. Minato debates before coming up with a suitable answer. I'm teaching Naruto to write and do a fair bit of it in my free time. I use a good amount of it with my projects recently and realized I was low today. Shinjiro nods and they weave through the crowds. They both have a grace to them that the other takes note of. Even Kyojiro notices that Minato seems to know where people are, like he has a sixth sense dedicated entirely to his surroundings. He's not wrong, even if he's not completely right. They arrive at a manuscript shop. Minato gently guides Naruto off his shoulders before they enter, figuring it is the polite thing to do. Naruto shoots back to his friend's side, though this time they are much quieter. They could probably wait outside. Hikari doesn't mind kids, but her dad does. Shinjiro mentions to Minato. Minato doesn't like Naruto being out of his sight, but he supposes it can be allowed this once. Especially since Naruto isn't alone. Minato nods to Naruto as the boy looks at him, leaving the bag with the yukata with him. Naruto beams at him, chakra flickering. Minato relaxes at the reminder that Naruto can alert him the moment he is in danger. Minato follows Shinjiro into the shop. It's a Western-style shop and a bell jingles overhead as they enter the door. Pardon the intrusion, Shinjiro says as they enter. The room smells like parchment and ink, mixed with something akin to old books. Minato takes a look around more out of curiosity than habit. There are a few presses for paper, and sheets of the material hanging in a corner. A desk sits in another corner, while a countertop rises at the back of the shop. A young lady stands at the counter, writing on a bound surface. She looks up when they enter and grins at them. She's dressed in men's clothes, shockingly enough, and has an air of innocence to her that makes Minato raise a brow. He quickly rights his countenance when she turns to them. Rengoku-san, it's nice to see you. She says and looks to Minato after receiving a nod in turn. Who's your friend? She asks and tilts her head. Her eyes are a vibrant green and Minato withholds a sharp intake of breath. They remind him of another's. I'm Minato. I'm guessing you are Hikari-san? He manages with another practiced smile. Hikari flushes at his smile, nodding in confirmation. I am. This is my grandfather's shop. I'm glad you've come by. Now, how can I help you? She asks. Shinjiro gestures to Minato and he relays what he needs to the girl. She nods and works quickly to gather what she needs. As she does, Minato notices that she keeps casting sidelong glances at him. He offers a smile, one a bit more genuine this time, and she goes red as she ducks behind the counter. He's used to the attention his looks get him. Most of the time it doesn't last long because Kushina was never afraid to step in and sweep him off his feet. Now it's not as welcome, but Minato can at least be polite to those who find him attractive. She sets a large bundle of paper bound in a ream on the counter, followed by a large bottle of ink. He looks them over and debates the quality before he nods. He will need to imbue both with his chakra for them to be suitable for seals, but that's a small task. Kushina taught him how to work with plain materials for his sealing early on in his quest to become a seal master. She has been angry when she found out he used store-bought explosive tags and storage seals. She about ripped his head off when she saw him buy chakra-infused ink one time. She said that the quality of those items was often far less than if he made them himself and promptly dragged him away to make them. Minato grabs his pouch to pay for the items but has to stop when Shinjiro reaches over to him to set some money on the counter. His eyes shift to the man in surprise. Shinjiro only shakes his head. "You paid for lunch, I don't mind covering this," he tells him, fighting a small smile. Minato tries to hide a sheepish grin. It was true he snuck the money on the counter while Shinjiro wasn't looking, but he hadn't expected to be repaid. Shinjiro didn't let him argue and just gave Hikari his money while he handed Minato his items. They were wrapped carefully and placed in another bag, one that Minato would have to carry if he didn't want to reveal his use of seals to the man. He decides against it as they say goodbye to Hikari and leave. Well, Minato leaves. Shinjiro tells him he needs to grab an order for a friend and Minato doesn't really feel like intruding. He nods, states he will wait outside, and exits the room. The air is beginning to smell like rain. Clouds are rolling in, covering the previously sunny sky. Naruto and Kyojuro are sitting down on a bench and talking in low voices over the yukata Naruto had pulled from its box. Their heads are bent together and Minato has to stop and enjoy the moment. Maybe his grief is still tearing at his soul. Maybe each laugh Naruto gives is both warming and hurting, but Minato doesn't care. He looks at his son and sees himself, his mother, and Naruto. Naruto is all that he has left and he'll be damned if he doesn't enjoy every second of it. Chapter 4. The Devil Dances in Moonlight. Shinjiro watches the door close behind Minato before he turns to Hikari. The girl is watching Minato go with a look of interest, one that Shinjiro feels he knows. He has a kid, Shinjiro tells her as he hands her the slip of paper. An order form from the master, something that could have waited but also something that Shinjiro felt he should get out of the way. Hikari huffs at him with the practiced ease of a girl he's known since she was barely taller than his knees. She goes through the order form and starts to calculate the total, as well as checking to make sure they have what he needs in stock. Most of it is for the Demon Slayer Corps, the rest is for the Rengoku estate. "Well, since you said kid and not married, I think it's fine if I look," she mutters, though her cheeks are flushed from his chiding. She finally jots down the total and hands it to him. He checks it over and then tells her to charge it to the Demon Slayer account, to which she takes it back to file it away. She hands him a second paper as a receipt and gathers what she can. "I take it that some Mizunoto will be by to pick it up?" She asks him as she starts to add the large order into boxes. All but the package of dyes. "Ruka wanted some more for our clothes," he tells the girl. Hikari nods and sets those aside for him as she finishes the order. She sets the boxes aside and makes sure she has everything right before packaging and handing him the dyes he requested. "All right, well, feel free to send them by any time. And give Ruka my regards, I miss seeing her around," she tells him. Shinjiro nods, thinking about his wife. She's close to term in her pregnancy and ready to welcome the fourth member of their family. She's been spending a lot of time in bed because her energy has been so low. Shinjiro hesitates to leave her behind, but this time she practically forced him with the notion that they needed a few things. "Very well. Maybe you should come by after the baby is born, I know she would appreciate a friend to talk to," he tells the girl instead. He doesn't want to worry her or give her the wrong idea, Ruka is strong and sometimes he forgets it. Hikari nods, her eyes shifting to the door again. Maybe you can bring your new friend by next time too, she tells him with an air of innocence. Shinjiro gives her another look that has her pouting and waving him off before he is turning to leave. He exits the door with a shake of his head and comes out to the side of Minato, letting the two boys force the yukata on him. It's bulky in the wrong places with the fabric underneath not laying right, but it settles well enough as Minato laughs at them. He crouches so that his son can tie the yukata closed with Kyojiru's help. Shinjiro smiles at the sight. He had wondered about Minato's reaction to the clothes but thought it rude to ask. The man looked like a deer caught by a hunter when he spotted the clothes. There was such an aura of grief around him that Shinjiro had wanted to reach out and offer support. He hadn't, because despite how well their sons seemed to get along, Shinjiro was still a stranger to Minato. Minato looks better now, focusing on the laughter and smiles of his son and not on whatever ghosts haunt him. The yukata suits him better than the clothing he had on before. Part of Shinjiro is glad the man has another layer on. The air is crisp with clouds overhead signaling that the temperature is going to drop further. Naruto seems to have a reasonable number of layers on while his father looks a step away from freezing. Then again, some people have higher body temperatures than others. The Rengokus do, though that is mostly due to their breathing techniques rather than any natural selection. Minato has an air to him of a demon slayer, but nothing that truly tells Shinjiro he may be one of them. He holds himself like a fighter, one breath away from dangerous. He hides it well enough, but Shinjiro has been noticing more and more, which adds up to Minato being some sort of fighter. From the quick movements in the ramen stand that not even Shinjiro could track to the grace he moves through people with, there's something dangerous to Minato. Maybe he isn't a demon slayer, because even those of the lesser ranks have at least heard of the flame Hashira, but he is someone with experience. There's a drop of water that falls over them. Shinjiro's smile fades as he looks to the sky. Something feels wrong. The news from the stall owner earlier about savage animal attacks has him on edge. The rain and cloud cover would allow a demon to walk around even midday like this. Oh, it's raining, Minato says as he lifts his hand to catch a few drops. He hums and then glances to Naruto. Shinjiro can already tell what the man is going to say before he does. He's been constantly trying to step away from them, more out of politeness than truly not wanting the company. He looks from his son to Shinjiro next and offers a sheepish smile. I think Naruto and I need to get home. We are on the outskirts of the town, so I would like to hurry up before the storm gets worse. I'm grateful for the company though. I normally come into town on the weekends, so perhaps we can meet again, Minato offers. Naruto rushes to his father's side, climbing up him like a monkey again. Like the last few times the kid has done it, Minato merely helps his son onto his shoulders and doesn't even let out a sigh of annoyance. Yes, I suppose we should also be heading home. I'm sorry if I kept you long, he tells the man, inclining his head. Minato shakes his and holds onto his son so he remains on his shoulders. It's not a problem. I didn't mind in the least. Well, safe travels Shinjiro-san, Minato tells him as he bows ever so slightly. Shinjiro huffs a laugh and shakes his head as he draws his son into his side. Just Shinjiro is fine, he tells him. Minato looks at him in slight shock, though it is quickly masked by a smile. This one doesn't seem to have the edge to it that his other ones do though, so it's a start. Just Minato is fine for me too then, he says, then turns. Naruto waves goodbye to Kyojiro and they head out. Shinjiro remains standing for just a little longer. His senses are buzzing. Something feels off. He isn't sure what it is, but maybe the storm is getting to him. He takes Kyojiro by his shoulder and leads them away from the market district. The further they go, the more the feeling fades. Something settles in his gut like an uncomfortable lump. Shinjiro knows the feeling. He pauses as they come to stand just outside of the village. He looks to the woods as the winds begin to grow sharp. There's a sense of foreboding in the air, and all of his training is telling him to be ready. He doesn't want to leave Kyojuro alone, but there is an edge to the rain and the wind. There is a pulse to it that makes Shinjiro think demon. He knows better than to ignore his instincts. He turns to find Kyojuro gazing up at him in worry. Leaning down, Shinjiro ruffles his hair and hands over the parcel of inks. Kyojuro handles the weight well enough. Get those back to the house, all right? I need to make sure of something. If you run into anything, drop the load and run, understood? He tells his son. Because Kyojuro is smart and wiser than most kids his age, all he does is nod. Shinjiro isn't worried about him. His kid has the training of a slayer, even if he's just starting. Any demon in the area would be stupid to near their house when a good amount of the path is paved with wisteria. Shinjiro turns and pulls his sword out from where he hid it at his back. Not the most comfortable spot, but it was better than walking around with it hanging at his side. He didn't want to ruin the carefully constructed relationships he had with the villagers. His eyes shift as he leaps into the trees. The vendor from earlier had mentioned that the southbound trails had been getting the most attention from this beast in the night. Something stirred when he realized that the direction was also where Minato and his son had gone. The rain is picking up and making it dangerous to move along the branches. Shinjiro shifts to the ground as he moves through the winding underbrush with ease. He has kept this area safe for years and knows a good amount of these woods well. Even past that, Shinjiro is a Hashira. The air is tinged with more than the smell of rain now. Something darker floats among the woods as Shinjiro picks up his pace. There is something foul living here, something that doesn't belong. He doesn't want to think he would have missed a demon lurking so close to his home, but the past week has been hectic. Between trying to manage teaching Kyojuro, his Hashira duties, and Ruka's impending birth, he hasn't had much time for nighttime patrols. The master has been gracious enough to offer other slayers, but most of them are lower level and could easily miss a demon used to hiding. Unease stirs in his gut again as he ducks under a branch and rises to leap over a rocky outcrop. He remembers Minato and his son and pushes himself to go faster. He had felt unease around them earlier, but maybe that was because something inside of him knew that they would be in danger. It wasn't the first time something like that had happened. His senses had saved lives and he wasn't about to ignore them after years of them proving themselves. He stopped to take in his surroundings. A path opened up ahead of him. It was the southbound road leading away from the village. A track of footprints became apparent to him, along with another set. One was distinctly the prints of sandals, likely Minato's based on the way they sunk into the ground. They looked like the tracks of someone running. Behind them were other tracks. Tracks of clawed feet barely scraping the ground, a third trail behind them. Likely a tail. Well, a transformed demon seemed likely now. Shinjiro veered to follow the sandals as he picked up his pace again. The muddy ground made quick movements difficult, but he was practiced even in the worst terrain. His feet barely touched the ground as he made his way over the path. The rain was coming down much faster now, obscuring his vision 10 feet ahead. Thunder rumbled overhead and the sky flashed with light. A crash, a flash of light, and then the scene opened up for Shinjiro to see. There was a figure standing in a protective stance as they looked into the rain. Behind them was a smaller figure bunched in what looked to be a pile of fabric. The first figure was facing another much more monstrous silhouette. Shinjiro took in claws, long and sharp, a tail that waved in the growing puddle of water surrounding its muddy clawed feet. A monstrous jaw with not one but two long tongues that rolled around as it cackled. "Come on, just let me have a bite of the boy. I'll leave you alone if you hand him over." The creature cackled, 3 of its 6 eyes on Minato while the others were settled on Naruto's hunched form. With a start, Shinjiro realized that Naruto was huddled under the covers of Minato's new yukata. A tear large enough to make him worry settled the cloth awkwardly over the boy's shoulders. Minato's eyes narrowed, and even at this distance, Shinjiro could see the fury in them. "Naruto, if you see anything coming toward you, I want you to do what we practiced, got it?" he demanded. Naruto nodded under the bundle, though Minato wasn't looking at him. His blue eyes were narrowed on the demon. Shinjiro prepared himself to step in, but before he could even begin a form, the demon launched at Minato. Anxiety rushed in his gut, but he did not need to fear. Seconds passed, and one moment Minato was in front of the demon, the next he was above the demon as a swirling blue light formed in his hand. His left hand had an odd-looking knife while the right held the swirling blue sphere. Minato's hand slammed down onto the demon as it bellowed in pain. Shinjiro dashed forward as Minato turned and landed in a crouch next to the demon. Its claws were reaching out as the blood gushed from its wounds. It turned its head to Minato, its neck bent awkwardly as it began to spasm and shake itself from the hole. "You bastard, I'll kill you," it cried. Shinjiro didn't give it another moment before he was upon it. His blade arched as a pillar of flame sprouted from the end. It sliced clean through the demon's neck. Flame-breathing first form, unknowing fire. Shinjiro calls as the neck splits from the body. The demon cries out in shock and pain but soon is silenced as it turns to ash. Shinjiro turns sharply, something on the edge of his senses that blares as a warning. He comes face to face with another demon similar enough to the last, though he doesn't have to worry as it gets kicked to the side. A resounding crack tells Shinjiro enough about the force without needing to experience the rush of wind it generated firsthand. Minato stands next to him, blue eyes glimmering with something unknown. He nods at Shinjiro and turns his attention to the other attacker. There are 2 more. That one and another keeps darting through the trees. I'm guessing beheading is the only real way to deal with them? Minato asks as he changes his grip on the strange knife in his hands. He stands to the side of Shinjiro, covering his weak spots with practiced ease. Shinjiro was right about combat training. Tack on superhuman strength too. Not quite. You need a Nichiren sword. The demons are weak to sunlight and my blade. If you could keep them distracted, then I can make quick work of them, he informs the man. Minato pauses, eyes assessing Shinjiro's blade in the dim lighting. He nods and glances back to the forest. I marked one of them. Can you get the one dancing around the edge? He asks. Shinjiro wonders what marked means but allows himself to have faith. He stretches his senses and finds the other demon as it dashes from one side to the other. Yes. If you can pin the other down as you did, he begins but has to curse when the one in the woods gets impatient. They lunge at Naruto and he moves faster than a normal human should as he slices the offensive arm off. It lands in a clump next to the kid. Strangely enough, Naruto only lets out a small noise of discontent. Another tally in the idea that Minato is a fighter if his son is used to something like this. Shinjiro ducks under a desperate swipe and brings his blade up in an arc. Second form comes easily enough as the second demon's head comes off. The demons, while numerous, aren't quite as strong as those that Shinjiro is used to fighting against. They are sluggish and leave themselves open enough that it speaks of newly turned demons rather than older ones. He turns as another burst of light enters the side of his vision. The third demon fell to the same technique as the first, though this one acts faster in an attempt to get to its prey. Minato twists midair, his knife goes flying. And suddenly he's nowhere near the demon. Suddenly he is right next to Shinjiro as he tugs another weapon from his pouch. The demon lets out a cry of frustration, but with his body mangled and still healing, he's easy enough to finish off with a quick cut. The three demons are nothing more than ash washed out by the pouring rain. Minato takes a moment to look around before he shifts his attention to his son. Naruto is still bundled in the now wet yukata, eyes open but hazy with tears. He's shaking, equal parts terrified and cold. Minato lets out soft noises as he scoops up his son, wet yukata and all. His arms bear the signs of a scuffle that happened prior to Shinjiro arriving. Blood doesn't quite make its way from the marks, but Shinjiro can see red seeping into the light-colored cloth that Minato wears as a shirt. "Hey Naruto, are you okay?" he murmurs, head tucked closer to his son as he presses his skin to his son's. Naruto lets out a cry and slings his arms around his neck. The kid doesn't cry, but Shinjiro can see him shaking from here. He sighs and cleans his blade before sheathing it. His eyes dart over the forest with a grimace. He's practically soaked at this point and in need of a good wash. Demon blood cakes his attire in a way he is sadly familiar with. He calculates his distance from home before looking back at the two. His eyes shift over Naruto, then pause. A cut on the boy's thigh is mostly washed away, but visible enough. He thinks back to all the other demons and how they went for the boy with little regard for himself or Minato and feels something stir. "Marichi," he mutters, though apparently, it is loud enough that Minato hears it when he turns to face him. Minato's lips are in a thin line as he attempts to console his son. "What?" Minato asks sharply, something in his tone daring Shinjiro to stay silent. Shinjiro had no plans in the first place and responds promptly. "Marichi. It's a rare form of blood that demons can't get enough of. They prey on other people, but Marichi are equivalent to 10 times a normal person or more, so they tend to go after them when they find them. That's why the demon attacked Naruto and mostly ignored you." Minato grimaces, looking at his son as Naruto slumps against him. "Demons?" he asks quietly, disbelieving. Shinjiro nods and gestures to the ash washing away below them. "You saw it for yourself." They turn to ash when their heads are removed by a Nichiren blade. "Otherwise, they can take even that strange attack of yours and get up." Minato nods and sighs. "Well, that's troubling," he says and then gestures over his shoulder in the way he was heading. "The place we are staying isn't far from here. I don't have much, but we can at least get dry," Minato offers. Shinjiro wants to decline on the basis that he has a family to get home to, but he knows it's likely for the best that he stays. He doesn't want to leave Minato to fight any more demons if they appear, and he also knows that his home is much farther from them at this point. "That would be appreciated. Thank you," he says and follows Minato as they head to his home. The pace they set isn't one a civilian should be able to manage, but Shinjiro stows that question away for later.
Unfortunately, this part is over. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies for all those quotes. Please have a good morning, afternoon, evening or night. See ya next time.